Sean Hannity finally tells his secret. There's something special about watching a man who built his job on real facts and tough debates suddenly talk about something very personal. Sean Hannity, one of America's most famous voices in conservative media, did exactly that. At 63, after many years of political talk, primetime TV, and attention-getting interviews, Hannity let his guard down to talk about something much more human than politics or power. Love. His emotional confession about the woman he calls the love of my life didn't just surprise his fans. It softened the tough edges of a man they thought they already knew. But did they really? Sean Patrick Hannity was born in Queens, New York in 1961. He was the youngest of 4 children in a tight Irish-American family. His father, Hugh, worked as a court officer, while his mother, Lillian, was a corrections officer at a county jail. It wasn't a fancy life, but it was one built on hard work and community. Growing up in Franklin Square, Long Island, he was just another neighborhood kid, working small jobs, mowing lawns, and tinkering with anything he could get his hands on. But it was the sound of radio that first caught his imagination. Late nights, when most kids were asleep, Hannity would tune into talk radio. He was amazed by how voices through a speaker could start an entire nation's conversation. By his early 20s, Hannity knew he didn't want a regular job. He tried different jobs, construction, painting, even bartending. But his heart kept going back to the idea of a microphone and an audience. His first real break came when he got a volunteer job at a college radio station in California. From that tiny station, Hannity moved to bigger places, eventually hosting shows in Alabama and Georgia. By 1996, his life changed overnight. Fox News picked him to co-host a new program with Alan Combs. The show became an instant hit. Years later, when the Sean Hannity Show started as a solo program, his voice became one of the most known in America. He interviewed presidents, criticized policies, and sometimes stirred up controversy. Behind the camera, however, Hannity wasn't as loud. Friends often describe him as surprisingly quiet off-air, someone who values loyalty, privacy, and faith. The version that America saw every night was the broadcaster. But the man off-screen was deeply thoughtful. To many who knew him, it was clear that while Sean Hannity might love chaos at work, what he truly wanted was peace in his personal life. Before the fame, Sean Hannity was just a young radio host trying to make it. And it was during those early years that he met Jill Rhodes. Jill was a journalist working at a local newspaper in Huntsville, Alabama. In 1993, they got married. It was simple, heartfelt, and filled with the hope of 2 people ready to face the world together. As his career grew, so did their family. They welcomed their son Patrick in 1998, and 3 years later, their daughter Mary Kelly was born. Yet being in the public always comes at a cost. The long hours, the constant travel, and the attention of fame began to take their toll. His marriage quietly started to fall apart. By 2019, after more than 2 decades together, Sean and Jill decided to split up. The divorce was finished quietly without drama or scandal. Even after the separation, Hannity and Rhodes continued to co-parent with remarkable grace. Their kids remained their top priority. Privately, though, that period was difficult for Sean. Those who worked with him noticed a small shift during that time. He started spending more time thinking, leaning into his faith and the quiet corners of his personal life. He stopped talking about relationships altogether. To many, it seemed like Sean Hannity had decided that love just wasn't for him anymore. But behind that guarded wall, something else was happening. A slow, quiet rediscovery of what love could look like the second time around. After his marriage ended, Sean Hannity didn't make any big announcements. He simply kept doing what he had always done, showing up. Every night, millions tuned in to see him deliver sharp political analysis. But off camera, his world had gone quiet. Those who knew him best say that he started putting moments over achievements. He reconnected with old friends, gave time to his children's activities, and even took up hobbies that had nothing to do with politics or television. What he didn't know was that the next chapter of his story was already waiting in the same building. Ainsley Earhart wasn't just another television personality. She was someone who had carved her own name in the tough world of broadcast journalism. A South Carolina native, Ainsley brought grace and positivity to her work, quickly becoming one of Fox's most beloved morning hosts. Behind that bright smile was a woman who had endured her share of heartbreak. She had gone through 2 marriages that didn't last and was raising her young daughter, Hayden, as a single mom. Her faith had become her compass. In many ways, Sean and Ainsley's paths mirrored each other. Both were veterans of the same network. Both had weathered public scrutiny, and both were learning what it meant to rebuild their personal lives after loss. The chemistry between them started quietly, rooted in friendship. They had known each other professionally for years. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Conversations that once revolved around work began to feel more personal. Their shared values became the foundation of their bond, faith, family, and the belief that everything in life happens in its own time. They began attending church together, often sitting quietly in the back. It wasn't flashy romance, but it was real. They built a connection grounded in understanding rather than spectacle. Their relationship, though quiet, began to grow into something deeper. Then came the moment that changed everything. It wasn't during a political broadcast or a scripted interview. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was simple. Sean Hannity, known for his confidence and composure, was speaking more softly than usual. His tone wasn't the booming certainty of a man defending his beliefs. It was the gentle honesty of someone revealing a truth he'd kept to himself for a long time. He began talking about being thankful, about the people who stand by you when life gets messy. Then his words turned personal. He mentioned finding someone who understood him, someone he called the love of my life. Viewers were stunned. It wasn't that they didn't think Hannity had emotions. It was that they'd never seen him reveal them so openly. He had always kept that part of himself under lock and key. Those who had followed his journey knew exactly who he was talking about. And it wasn't just the words that made the moment powerful. It was the honesty, the pauses, the subtle smile that crossed his face when he said, "At this stage in my life, I'm just grateful. I found someone who makes me better every single day." What's clear is that at 63, Sean Hannity has entered a new season of life. For a man who has spent decades debating the state of the nation, his most meaningful revelation wasn't political at all. It was personal. It was about realizing that love doesn't follow a timeline, that it doesn't care about public opinion, and that sometimes the best things in life happen quietly away from the cameras. Sean Hannity's story isn't just about finding love at an older age. It's about the courage to begin again. The first lesson is that it's never too late to find happiness. The second lesson is about being open. Hannity's openness showed that true strength sometimes lies in letting your guard down. He reminded millions that showing emotion doesn't erase toughness. It makes it stronger. If there's one thing Hannity's confession made clear, it's that the human heart doesn't retire. It keeps hoping, keeps searching, and sometimes when the timing is finally right, it finds what it's been looking for all along. Love,